Every step I trust your plan, standing strong where I am.
All right, y'all, we're so excited here with the All Things New podcast, and I'm really excited because we have Michelle Rhodes. And Michelle, this is how we always start this. We always like to ask people about their All Things New experience, and what we mean that is like your salvation experience, how you came to know the Lord. So that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
You want to?
Okay, so when I was like in 5th grade, I remember accepting Christ as my Savior. I was crying, went home, told my mom I'd been at Meadow Grove Baptist Church, and told my mom I was a terrible person, I was a sinner, and I wanted Jesus to be, over my heart and give my life to Christ. And she was like, of course started crying, and we called, I can't remember who the pastor was, but anyway, I got baptized, but I never sought after the Lord. I never, I didn't know about discipleship. I didn't know I should be reading the Bible. I didn't know any of that. So therefore I didn't really grow, like I should. So then I just gave myself over to flesh through my high school years and early college years, thinking, but I always knew my dad always he put a conscience on us. Okay. I knew right from wrong. So everything I did, it wasn't because I didn't know. And I know that God was convicting me during those times, but I was one of those ones that said, one day when I get married, I'm going to be different. And thank God that he allowed me to get to that day, because, a lot of people don't make it to that day. And one day, and I always say, Keith, my husband, changed my life, because he went to church. I didn't really go to church that much growing up. I'm really not sure why. My mama was really sick a lot of times. And my dad worked 16 hours days, and I don't know. I just didn't go to church very much. But we talked about Jesus a lot. We prayed. We did all of that, just the regular stuff. But anyway, Keith went to church, but, there's a lot of people in church that aren't really saved. He did all the right things. He was there every time the doors open. He knew the Bible verses, but he got saved on a mission trip in Mexico. He realized that he had never given his life to Christ. So anyway, but because of him, I started going to church. I started trying to live right. And when you start having kids, of course, you want them to have better experiences than what you had. Not that mine was terrible, but I made a lot of bad decisions because I didn't try to grow in the Lord. So anyway, I started growing. God started working in my heart. And one thing about me is, I had to, as a busy mom, there's no time. You're busy working, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're refereeing kids. So God just kind of spoke to me in the morning and said, you need to get up in the morning before anybody gets up. And of course that's biblical too, Jesus got up early in the morning. But so I just started disciplining myself. I'd get up at 3:30 or 4 because that would be my time. And, God and I had a lot of sweet moments, and he just continued to grow me. So I accepted Christ at a young age and did not start growing until probably I was in my late 20s. Early 30s, and God woke me up in the middle of the night. So funny story is, we played musical beds all night long. 3 kids, they never slept in the bed, so they'd come get in our bed, I'd go get another one. God woke me up in the middle of the night, and he did a work in me, and it was so much where I sat up and was like, and I really said, I'm here at your will. Now that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
So it was still a growing process, and when I was younger, I wanted to be a social work. I read a book about a little boy and it's in Reader's Digest of all things. I used to read a lot. I spent a lot of time by myself. It's hard to think. I was really shy when I was young. Really shy, very insecure. Anyway, so I was reading this book when I was young, and it's about a little boy that was severely abused. And they were like pulling his teeth out. It was just awful. And I just can remember crying in my room as a young kid, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But doesn't the devil get you so off a track? And I just did not think I was smart enough. I didn't know enough people. Nobody would listen to me. Just all those things. And then, I don't know how far I'm supposed to go with this, but that's all things new. But then, it's a long story, but I gave my life to Christ at a young age. I started growing in my Christ after I got married, and because I wanted my kids to have so much more, maybe not walk the path that I walked, and it's just been a continual process for me. I've been baptized like 3 times to make sure.
Look, how
I think
long?
we all have. You know what I mean? Like,
We got plenty of water.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess growing up in the Bible Belt, I knew about asking Jesus in your heart, and I remember getting baptized when I was a kid. And obviously, I didn't live it, but for some reason, I had this. I didn't want to go to hell. And
Same.
when you said about getting baptized, Damon, I would say that sinner's prayer. But anytime I thought I might die or something bad would happen, I'd say that sinner's prayer because I didn't want to go to hell. But then I'd go back and live.
Yeah.
But I can remember just being. This is embarrassing to talk about, but I remember just being wasted in the backseat of a car, thinking something bad was going to happen to me and saying the sinner's prayer. But it meant absolutely, it was just a way. I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
But, I didn't want to live for the Lord either. Hey, you was talking about Keith. How long have y'all been married?
35 years.
35 years. And tell us, because y'all have, we're going to talk about your family too, but tell us the secret to being married 35 years.
Okay, women are not going to like this. Okay, women are not going to like this because I have a very aggressive personality. As I got older, I started coming to say, you know what, people's not going to run over me anymore.
You
So
went from being a shy
I
kid
went from
to
being really shy, and when I went to college at East Central, I was like, nobody knows me, so I don't have to be like this anymore. So then I pretended to be somebody that I wasn't. But for me, God laid on my heart, let Keith be the man of the home. Stop trying to do what he's supposed to do. So I really, as I was reading and seeking, I came to that part about submitting. And Keith is super sweet, really, I don't want to say passive, but kinda, and then here I am with my boxing gloves in my pocket at all times, ready to go. And I don't know what all you want me to tell, but I'll just say it. We got in a fight one time. We had 3 small children. We were at camp meeting, which is church. I was trying to do all the good works as a new born again Christian, trying to do everything right, being that person that was teaching. I was at every function of the church. It was camp meeting. We had revival. We had church 3 times a day. And we had 3 little kids, and I was cooking lunch for a friend that just had a baby. And he said to me, well, if you would worry about me as much as you do everybody else in the community, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh, wow.
So I picked up I think I had some, I don't know if it was a cookie or I don't know what it was. It's been so long ago. And I threw it and hit it against the wall. Keith won't see this because he don't know how to watch Facebook. But I get in the car and I'm going to campground. I'm going to go get the roast out of the oven. And he thought I was leaving. Okay. Of course, I wasn't leaving. Where am I going to go? He's my rock, So I didn't tell him I was going to go to the campground. And he busted my window out of my vehicle and got my keys out so I wouldn't leave. And all the glass was in my lap. And I'm like, I said, my dad's going to kill you. And I looked, y'all, and he was bleeding. And every time his heart, he cut his arm. And at that moment, I forgot anything that we had. We were fussed because we were tired. We were so busy trying to do everything right that we were neglecting our relationship. And then I thought to myself on the way to the hospital, I called our friend over and I said, you got to come sit with the kids. I got to take Keith to the hospital. I didn't say why. I think I climbed out the other side. And the whole time I was going, I'm sorry. And God just really worked on my heart and said, if he feels like that, imagine what your kids feel like too. Because you're in such a whirlwind trying to do everything. You're like, hurry up, let's go, hurry up, let's go, hurry up, let's go. So anyway, we got to the hospital and I had to go across the street to High Five Sports and we didn't have shoes on. I had to go buy some shoes and stuff. So anyway, it was like at that moment.
At you, did you?
I think they probably knew. But I realized then that I have got to get my priorities straight. And you hear it all the time, it's the pyramid. It's God, your spouse, your children,
That's right.
and then it's everything else. But it's so easy to get it messed up, especially when you're that church person trying to do everything right. And so my mom was like, don't tell anybody what you did. I'm like, we've always been an open book anyway. And I'm like, you know what? It's cheaper than divorce. And it can help people not get to that point in their relationship.
That's right.
So be it. And honestly, this may sound really silly. I don't know that we have argued since.
Oh, wow.
Since then. And I don't remember, I had an infant at the time, and my baby's about to be 30. But I started little at a time doing what the Bible says, and I just started submitting to Keith and tried to bite my tongue a lot.
Isn't it funny? Our culture is so messed up that even you almost, when you said women's not going to like this, it's
They're not
almost like
gonna like it.
apologetic,
Yeah, but
but it works. Maybe
It
God knew what he
works.
was talking
Well,
about.
It
you know, I
works.
think too, man, that our society today has got things so mixed up in that aspect because see, you got people who want to take it to an extreme on every side, right? To submit to your husband does not mean that you bow down
Oh,
and just roll over and just let him do whatever you want he wants to you. And when it says that the man is to love his wife as Christ loved the church, right? So that in and of itself was a submission, right? So it's a multiple submission, but it's the understanding that the husband would be the leader of the home, right? But it would still be the two making one body, right? Because that's what it symbolizes is the two became one flesh and produced a new life. And I think so often, man, I've heard guys working in ministry for so long. I had a guy tell me the other day that his wife just don't submit to him. I mean, well, look, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. You're trying to give her orders and treat her like she's less than human, and telling her that she's not doing what God said when she don't listen to your every command.
And
There's a big
Keith
difference.
is so sweet. And listen, the cool thing is, I didn't say I'm submitting to you. I just started listening to him, not giving my opinion so much or say we need to do this, and started praying for him. And he got saved.
Yeah.
Amen.
There you
He
go.
didn't know he was
Amen.
saved. So that's just God honoring.
Absolutely. And God honored what he says to do. So, I think sometimes we try to complicate things so much. And look, I know, like, I don't know if you're like me, when people give me a compliment, it kind of embarrasses me and I don't like it and all, but I was thinking on the way here, because Damon, I don't know if you know this, but I taught school and coached high school for 20 plus years. And every parent thinks their kids are wonderful, but I had a lot of kids that were turds. But I've known your kids literally their whole life. And when they were little, they were great kids and served the Lord. And I know nobody's perfect. And I know that, but when they were little, they were great kids. And I can't remember a time where I didn't enjoy being around them. And I'm talking about, because when you're in that authoritative role, I used to think, man, it's going to be so much fun to teach and coach, but kids don't like to be told what to do. So you're in that position where you're telling them to do something they don't want to do. So it's not all this warm and fuzzy, there's conflict there, but there was never time that I didn't enjoy being around your kids, and they served the Lord when they were young, and as adults, they're still serving the Lord. So what would you, because, I look up to you as a parent for raising great kids. And like I said, all the way through, what advice would you give parents, or what did y'all do right? And I know you're very transparent about things that you did wrong, but what would you say that?
Well, one thing, and I this is from my childhood, my dad always talked to us like real life. We didn't beat around the bush. We didn't, pretend like things weren't happening, like real life issues. So we're just very real with our kids. Like, of course, we had them in church. We always talked to them about doing right and serving, and we talked a lot about the Lord. Okay. And we worked hard. We have a farm, so our kids worked. Like before every softball game or baseball game, they're picking up chickens, doing, whatever. We worked. They didn't have video games. People aren't going to like that either. We didn't have video games. We didn't have TVs in their bedrooms. If we watched TV, we all did together. Like when they went to their bedroom, they read or just hung out with their friends, until they got telephones. But we just spent a lot of time together. We were in sports. And yes, we were doing sports on Sundays, but Taylor got saved on the way home from a softball practice one day. So I never tell people don't do sports, because we had a lot of one-on-one in the vehicle together, a lot of real life conversations, what's going on. So we just spent a lot of time with him and just was real. Like, I didn't pretend like I was the perfect kid. So many people say, well, their parents never did anything wrong, so they were scared. I was very honest with my kids about mistakes that I had made.
Well, I know Keith was a really great athlete, but he never tried to relive his glory days through y'all's children. Y'all were always great, because I know some really devout Christians, but when it comes to athletics, it's like faith goes out the door.
Yeah.
But y'all never were that way.
No.
Y'all were always very supportive, and it was about the kids and not
Well, it's
you
about
did
the
in high
team.
school.
It's not
Yeah.
about when you're in sports. It's not about you. It's about the team. Like we never knew Brooke. I didn't even know Brooke was such a great player because we didn't keep up with stats. I had no idea how many points she scored during the game. We didn't know any of it because it's not about her. Same way with Tyler and Taylor. We didn't know that what they scored. And honestly, to the end of the year, her senior year, we had no idea that she had done all of these things because we're trying to keep her humble. You know, and back to good kids, a joke around our house is our kids were great kids, but they've been made some really bad decisions in the adult world.
Well,
But don't we have to do
Yeah,
that?
who
Don't we
hasn't?
have to
Yeah.
do that?
Like I said,
You know what I
God's been so
say?
good.
My saying is, you can't go wrong with the roads.
But even with the mistakes that they made, or all of us, they've always been faithful about giving to others and serving
Yeah.
the Lord. It's very, very unusual, especially
love
with
my
young
kids.
people. Damon, her daughter, she's talking about, played Division I basketball, and her son played junior college basketball. So they were all. And Taylor was a great athlete. She just didn't love it like they
Yeah.
did. But when she got serious, I remember when she got serious, and I think the year that she won the 3-point shooting contest.
Yes, she did at
And
the
I was
end.
like, and people don't see her as being that, but she was really a good athlete.
She's
too.
all around.
I want to, because one of the things when we started this podcast, because I know there's a lot of podcasts, but my goal, I want to brag on Jesus. Then I wanted, through our conversation, for people listening to have tools that they could use to help them. So I want kind of, because you were a stay-at-home mom and you went back to college at what age?
Gosh, I probably went back at 40 and finished. I think I graduated. I might have been 39. I think I graduated when I was like 43, finished the police academy when I was 44, and got my master's degree when I was 53 or 54. Old people rule.
But there's a reason I'm going to get somewhere with your work history, but you worked at the Juvenile Detention Center. What was your job title there?
Well, I started out as a detention officer, and real quick, we were farmers, and we ended up having to sell our farm because the company went bankrupt, and I was tired of working like a man. And all this time, I had wanted to start something for kids, but the devil just kept me beat down. So I thought, well, if I go get a college education, people will listen to me. Okay, and so I did that while I was working full time and raising kids, and then it was just one thing after another, but just. I mean, I always say Jehovah Jireh for me. Like, he has always provided, even like in my mom's death, even in things that were going on in my childhood, all that. But so I started out, we sold our farm, and I said, I'm just going to go get a regular job. I'm about to be a regular person. Like, I'm done working like a man. And so I called Ronnie Pennington, because you start calling people because I worked with him at the little restaurant in Pelahatchie and when I was younger, and I said, I need a job. I got to have some insurance. We sold our farm, and we can't keep paying this amount of insurance. Didn't even ask what I was going to get paid or anything. He's okay, I'll let you come work at the juvenile detention center. I'm like, what is that? Didn't even know we had one. And but at the time they were building one in Pelahatchie, and our church had talked about maybe that'd be a good ministry, but I still didn't really know what it was. I take a job, and then this uniform. I even told the sheriff, like at that time Ronnie was sheriff, and I said, you need to get some cuter uniforms. All that brown don't look good. So, but I had known Ronnie a long time, and my mom was really sick. Ronnie and Glenda lived across the road, and I always cry when I see them because they were so good to me when I was little. They lived across the road from me, and my mom was really sick, and my dad worked a lot. My mom had pseudotumor cerebri, so I have a lot of trauma when it comes to hospital. I get physically sick even now going into a hospital, but I would always go get them, like, help, I need help with mom, and they would always come across,
wow.
so they mean a lot to me. Then I went years without seeing them and ran into him somewhere, but anyway, I called him, and he said,
explain who he is. He's Ronnie Pennington.
Ronnie Pennington is the former sheriff, but he was I didn't know him as that. Like, he worked at whatever that plant was on Marquette when I knew him. Yeah. So we had moved off, and so, when you're younger, you don't think about sheriff or things like that. But
Damon, I'm going to tell you, don't
sheriff,
lose your thought. I know we got
ADD.
Damon, I'll tell you a crazy thing. When Aubrey got arrested, at that time, they would let you do your prison time in the county jail. They don't do that anymore. So he did his state time in the county jail as a trustee. Ronnie Pennington was the sheriff. So Ronnie is
Yeah,
really
well, he was an
involved.
undersheriff at that time. Yeah.
He's really involved in jail ministry, but Aubrey and Ronnie will go into jail together, and Aubrey will say, "I'm Aubrey Pigeon. Aubrey, what's your NDOC number?"
49364.
And then Sheriff Penton saying, "I'm the former sheriff," and man, everybody in the jail listen because you got a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got an inmate.
I hate to say ex-convict, you got a redeemed
Ex-con
brother
and
here,
ex-sheriff.
and the sheriff.
Together.
And anyway, he teaches our Celebrate Recovery at Church of the King. Very good,
man, we love
really good
Mr.
guy.
Ronnie.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
I
awesome.
didn't know him as sheriff. I knew him as Ronnie, Mr. Ronnie. So I called him. He said, I'll put you there. And I was like, okay. Well, I was still in college, and that's when it was in Pearl. And
Yeah.
anyway, started working there and just kind of like, just watching, going, okay, getting to learn the kids. Because I was scared. Like I said, am I going to have to fight? And he said, well, you may need to protect your pretty teeth. I'm like, anyway, it's not like that, And what I learned though, y'all, that's God
good.
took us, because I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't listen to him. I thought I wasn't worthy enough. I thought I couldn't do it. He put me there where those kids are to be their voice and to be their advocate when nobody else will advocate for them.
Right.
So I did that. I learned. Anyway, I was just like, we moved over to the big juvenile detention center. And then eventually, I ended up being the director there. And then that's where I met Debbie and Shannon and, met a lot of
and
cool
when you
people.
were the director there, they were taking kids from all over the state. Because I remember going in there and doing some ministry with you, and it was like the Wild West. How many kids did y'all?
He said it was like the
It was
wild.
like, wow, listen, I think
Kids
it
from
was
all
like
over
24
there.
kids. And so they did.
Yeah.
So back in the day, everybody thought you had to punish the kid. Okay. So data all over proves scare straight does not work. Okay. These kids have been punished their whole life. You have to find something good that they're doing and go from that. Like,
Right,
golly,
positive reinforcement.
you have to. And so we implemented PBIS. I didn't even know what a behavior management was. We spanked at my house, but we did do a lot of positive, but, and luckily Sheriff let me just kind of roll with it and change the way the culture was there. And we literally decreased our incidents. Like the very first month we started doing the positive reinforcement center, like first month was maybe like 30-something%. The next month was 60%. And anytime you can decrease incidents, it's keeping staff from having a
Safe.
workers' comp.
Right.
It's keeping kids from having an incident. And it just changes the whole environment. They're used to being hollered and told how sorry they are.
That's right.
But I did not know that so many young men had been sexually abused until I started working there. And then you start listening to the horror stories that our kids in Rankin County are living. And you're like, no wonder they're doing drugs. No wonder they're running away. No wonder they're sleepy at school. When they're up taking care of their dad all night who's falling all over the place. And so I ended up leaving there, but
How long were you the director?
I don't know, maybe 3 years. At that time I had to go to the police academy, and that was for courtroom security mostly, because I don't have a police bone in my body. I have the highest respect for law enforcement, and if one told me right now to put my head down and don't talk for 20 minutes, I would do that. Like, I'm a rule follower. But I got burned out. There's a thing called secondhand trauma. You just get burned out, and I was in it with my whole heart and soul.
Yeah,
That's
wow.
how I roll.
I
And
remember you were taking kids. Amy, she would bring kids, they'd get out, wouldn't have anywhere to go, and she would move them in her house, and she was getting them involved in ministry. But, and Michelle, again, we're going to get back to this for a minute, but then after that, you worked for the court for a while as what was your job title for the?
probation officer.
So
I
you
mean,
were
I worked in drug court.
and worked in drug court with
Yeah.
juveniles as
Yeah.
a probation, and then you went and taught school for a couple of years.
Yeah, I change jobs every 4 years to get bored. It's like, okay, check, I done that. Let me do something else. But my heart is juvenile justice.
So
But the part about probation officer is I used to get so mad at the parents, the way that they did these kids and the environment that they had them. But what I realized is they were those kids. When God put me in probation, that these parents are the broken children that nobody helped.
that had kids.
That had kids and still doing the same thing, and so God put me in that probation ward. I was in juvenile drug court, but was also in family drug court. And that's where I got to meet the adults. And I'm like, here's a kid I used to take care of. You know, it's the same thing because nothing changed. Nothing changed. Nothing changed.
It's definitely a cycle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can speak for that for my own life. You know, when I was a kid, I said I would never be like them, not ever. You know, that was my thing was like, I will never be like them. I will never be an alcoholic. I will never do that. But then what I found was that by the time I was, 12, I was already drinking. I was already smoking, smoking pot. You know what I mean? I was already doing those things that they had done because I guess inside, whenever we're children and we live through that trauma, right, we begin to associate their activities as being grown. And we think that's what a grown person does. And before you know it, you become the very thing that you hated whenever you were a child. It's sad. It really is.
It's a vicious cycle.
It really is.
And you don't know you have trauma, so you really don't
Right.
even know
You don't know
how to
anything else.
deal with it. I didn't know I had trauma until 2011 when I started working this field, and I was like, oh, okay. So, but if you don't know that, you think that's what everybody's doing. Like you said, this is just what we do.
Whenever I remember when I was a kid, whenever I went to my friend's house, and it was the first time I had ever been in what I would consider a rich person's house. They weren't rich by any means, but compared to us, they were. You know, we lived with. I mean, my mother and I lived for like 3 years without water. Okay, so we were like beyond poor. We were way, way, way below the poverty level. But I remember going to Brandon's house and walking in there and seeing the way that they lived and everything being in order, and it shocked me. I had never seen anything like that. I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
You know, so
Poverty's a big problem too. I tell people that all the time. So man, I can't make it on $10 an hour. For real.
And it's
They
easy to
can't.
judge somebody like going, well, I don't know why they can't do that. Why can't they get their car fixed? And
Yeah.
but it's like you said, when you start looking at the income,
The tire goes out, that's half your
That's
paycheck.
it.
What are you
That's
going to
it.
do? That's where all things new, we try to come in and help people.
And
Sit
share
there.
y'all do a great job too.
We're going to talk. So then you taught school for a couple of years, and now you tell us what your job title is at Oakley.
I'm deputy administrator at Oakley Youth Development Center.
Yeah.
It used to be Oakley Training
I know.
School, but it's more
Yeah.
positive. They changed
right.
that to Oakley Youth Development
And tell
Center.
everybody what Oakley does.
So we take care of kids from all over the state who have been charged with felony crimes. So they're not supposed to come to us until the community, so it's like drug court, probation, taking care of mental health, getting on meds, somebody working with them in the school, until the community has done everything that they've done to rehabilitate that child. And we all know that there's not a lot of resources in the communities for kids. Even in Rankin County, I mean, it's not a lot of resources for kids. But so anyway, they do everything that they can to rehabilitate them, and they're still committing crimes. And look, they're adjudicated by the court. Kids different than adult world. They don't get sentenced. They don't get indicted. They don't get any of that. So we're long-term rehabilitation. So they come in with us. We take care of their mental health needs. We take care of, we do substance abuse treatment. We do education. We've got the greatest school ever. It's a certified school district through MDE. Kids are getting their GEDs or getting caught up on their schoolwork. They're taking care of their trauma. They're realizing that they have trauma. And then they're getting the nutrition that they need. They're getting all the medical, dental
But they're
needs.
still incarcerated. for
No,
lack of a
not
better
incarcerated. We're just taking care of them.
Taking care of. And what happens when
We're
they
just taking care of them.
What happens when they turn 18?
Well, we can keep them till I think we're 21, but most of the time when they're 18, if, the courts are going to let them go anyway. I don't know that Judge Broom kept hardly anybody after 18 because it was like, okay, we've done everything we can. But we have kids that turn 18 there. When you have a birthday at Oakley, you get Chick-fil-A for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I was asking you, because, detention officer at the Juvenile Detention Center, you were the director, probation officer, high school teacher, now you're at Oakley. So obviously you're around more young people than anybody else I know,
Yeah.
and you're around more young people that have problems. So this is why I went through that whole thing. I don't think the average church member understands what it's like outside
Yeah.
the four walls of the church. So what have you learned through these experiences? And if you could go to every church in our area and say, this is what we need your church to do, what would that
It's
look
the
like?
same thing we needed when I accepted Christ at 5th grade. We need discipleship. We need van ministries, to go get the kids, because sometimes the parents aren't coming. We need to, be out in their neighborhoods doing Bible schools, the sack lunch like you, and probably need to try to do some mentorship with that. Families are hurting. And of course, I'm drawn to I always tell my friends, and I'm not a good friend until you need something. If you need something, call me. But in the meantime, this is my lane. It's like I'm kind of drawn to these people. Even I went to Brandon High School and I started the Law and Public Safety Academy there. But I was having kids that weren't even in the program coming there, and I'm like, is this a juvenile detention center? Like, I feel like I'm a magnet for those kids. It's because I listen, and because I'm real with them. I kind of know the life that they're living. I've seen what they're going through. And so, the churches need to get out and know, like I always tell people, the supervisors that are supervising, the staff, you service workers, know your personnel, know your community, know what's there, know the needs, meet those needs. If you go and if you see that a car's been broken down for a long time, hey, go say, what can I do to help? If you be in contact with the schools, there's so many things you can do. But hey, I'm guilty. We teach Sunday school, I go to church, and a lot of times that's kind of it for me, because I'm with Shannon's home and my job. My job is my ministry, really, right now.
And that you mentioned Shannon's Hope, and tell everybody about how that got started and the name. And
so when I went to the sheriff's department, started sheriff let me be the administrator there, and I'm trying to change the culture there. Y'all, I've never worked outside the home in a long time. So, but I just treated the kids like they were my kids, because my thought was, if Brooke Tyler Taylor came here, would I be happy with it? And I wouldn't be happy with it the way it was. And so what would I do to make it like this? And Debbie Pridgeon called me one day and was wanting to come, and Lindsay and Miss Kim were wanting to come and minister to the females there. And then Todd started coming. The All Things New started coming. People from Meadowgrove started coming. And so we started doing little things like that. And then Shannon Love called me one day, and she said, I'm Shannon Love. And she said, God told me I need to come there and teach art and be that person for you for whatever you need. I'm like, ma'am? Like, I didn't know Shannon. And I was like, okay. So, of course, I'm sure I had to ask the sheriff. I don't know, or just, I really didn't have to ask. I'm sure I told him. He was like, yeah, do what you need to do. Ran it through Judge Broom, and anyway, she did whatever vetting system we had, and she started coming in and teaching art, and man, the kids loved her. And so we just started doing extracurricular things like that. And I remember a group of kids from Lauderdale County. A lot of them are single moms, dads are in prison, and I had some birdhouses. I think Brother Hamilton had bought some birdhouses he made, and I was out on the back little Sallyport area, the rec yard, and we were going to paint them. They had never done anything like that. Things that you should do in Bible school, when you're little, is, little paint little things and take home. And one of these kids were waiting to be certified as an adult for the crimes that he had been doing. And I don't know how we got to talking about bungee jumping. They had never heard of bungee jumping. Well, that should be a 5th grade spelling word. Y'all, I had to leave out of there, and I was bawling that this young man that had never painted anything or didn't know what the word bungee jumping was about to go to prison with adults. And I just remember bawling in my office going, something's got to be done. We've got to do more for our communities. And even with Shannon's Hope, most of the people that we work with are single parents. And I just know with myself, if I wouldn't have had Keith alongside of me, there were plenty of times that, and this is just being so honest, I was on the floor of my bedroom, balled up in a fetal position, going, I can't keep doing this, because it's hard. It's easy to be a crappy parent. And that's what I used to tell my kids. It's easy for me not to redirect you or punish you or, do things. It's real easy. It's not to do those things. It's really hard being that consistent parent. But then of course I would let other people in my house and try to fix them. But one thing I learned about working with people in addiction when I was in drug court and working with y'all in Celebrate Recovery, I'm not God, and I try to be God. It messed it up. And I can't work harder than what you're going to work. But it took me leaving the job that I loved the most, being at Rankin County, because I didn't realize I just woke up one morning and I told Keith, I'm quitting. He was like, what? I told McBride, I'm quitting. He was going, Michelle, take off. You never take off. Nope, I'm done. But I didn't know, but God put me back at Oakley where where my heart is, and this is the population, because I believe in rehabilitation. But the problem is we work on the kid, and send them back to the same environment.
Yeah.
We've got to start doing things in sync, working on the parents, and while we work on the kid, because we expect the kid to do something different, and we're sending them same back to the place where they have to have a gun to walk down the street.
So I'm gonna get you directed back, Shannon. Shannon Love, I know she had a huge influence on you.
She did. Shannon and David
then-
Pridgeon.
So, and you saw, explain to everybody what disturbing the family peace and how, I know you saw people in the juvenile system that didn't really need to be there.
Really, the juvenile justice system is really set up for crimes. Okay, disturbing the family peace is just what it is. Parents are arguing. Most of the time, it's because the parents haven't been consistent through the years. They're in some kind of addiction, and then the kid wants to do something, and all of a sudden they're going to be parent of the year and say no, after they haven't done that. So it is what it is. Brooke disturbed the family peace a lot of times when we took care of it in the house. But most of the time when we had any kind of argument, it was usually my fault. It was usually my fault trying to be too rough or trying to set those boundaries or not communicating well, or either we were tired. A lot of times when you're tired, or if a family's in crisis, like if they know that you said you didn't have water for 3 years, so right before the water got cut off, I'm sure your mom was in crisis, knowing she wasn't going to be able to provide for the family, or the electricity's about to get cut off, or so that makes things with disturbing the family peace. So they would come there, and
So Damon, the way the law is, if you're in the system as a juvenile, you're in the system, your guardian can call and say Damon's acting up. Legally, they come pick you up and house you. And I know
go before the court.
And I know there's situations where the parents would want to go party for the weekend, so they would call. Call, say Damon's acting up, and you basically are in juvenile jail while they go out parties.
Right.
You see kids like that, and I know you saw victims of
Sex trafficking.
sex trafficking there's nowhere else for them to go, so they ended up in the juvenile detention center.
And one girl actually, and this is why I don't believe in putting disturbing the family peace with kids who are doing crime. We had a girl from she's actually was on the streets of New Orleans. Of course she's a victim, but she thinks she's doing good things. And we had a little girl there that her parents are drug addicts, and she was there for continues to run away. So when kids run away, very seldom is it they're running away to something. They're usually running away from something.
That's right.
But nobody thinks of it like that. They're just thinking, oh, them little bad youngins, instead of saying, hey, what's really going on? It could be uncle messing with them, or brother messing with them, or friend's brother. There's reasons that they're stepdad, they're running away. But we don't really try to get into that very much. It's just like, just run them through. So anyway, a girl from Lamar County came, and she had been on the streets of New Orleans, and she came and met this other little precious little girl that just was living with grandma and just doing the best she could. And they make it seem exciting. Hey, we're going to go party. We're going to, when we get out of here, let's meet up outside of here. Well, we don't give them things to write on, but the kids are smarter than they act, so they can memorize stuff. They can memorize what they want to memorize. So she ended up running away, hitching a ride to Hattiesburg, and the pimp was there. The girl's pimp was there. And anyway, ended up selling her to 3 men, and they took her to Alabama. And so anyway, cops ended up finding her. Guess what they did? They brought her back to us, and I'm like, what am I going to do with her? She'd been doing all kinds of drugs, which I would too if I had been sold to 3 people. I'd be trying to do everything too. Anyway, judge ended up getting her to like a rehab and helped her with that. And she actually called a couple of years later and wanted to know if she could come talk to the girls. But she was still young, so we don't let kids come talk. We didn't at that time. I don't know what they do now, so you don't really need to mix disturbing the family peace, and that's why we want to do Shannon's home. That's why we want to do that. But Shannon Love came down. She was the most spiritual person. Her and Debbie were the most spiritual person and that people that I have ever met, and just loved on me and supported me and taught me, how to love and that I was enough, And so anyway, that's what we did. And then Shannon ended up getting cancer. I had left and went to another job, and this was in 2018, I think. And anyway, she was still coming to the juvenile thing. We had actually been able to, we had known a girl that had been trafficked, and we actually got the FBI and then to come talk to her while she was at Rankin County. And anyway, she ended up in the federal court system with the FBI and all them. So Shannon and I were able to go to her trial.
I remember that.
And I mean, we just thought we were Bonnie and Clyde. We thought we were really doing something, you know, looking at that guy, you know, and anyway, but I'm like, you know, I just had a relationship. We were actually doing the therapeutic foster care parent for her, and she was out at a treatment facility in on the coast and getting her GED. But it's so sad. She had never, ever done well at anything. She'd been in the system. Her mom was a prostitute. So she had been taken away at a young age and in the foster care system, got abused in the foster care system, and then started running. Typical of what we see. And but she ran away, and she said, Miss Michelle, I just don't think I can do good at your house. And it broke my heart because yet you don't have to do good. Just be you. We're going to help you. Yeah. You know, but she ended up thinking if she would move back with her mom, that it would fix everything. And, you know, they have in their head that their mom's a hero and that they're going to love me. And that's not how it was when she got there. So anyway, they flew her back in, and Shannon and I were able to love on her. And she came to, actually, I said, I'm not staying in this hotel for 2 days. I'm scared that the bad guys were going to come after her, you know. So we took her to Pelahatchie and ended up at my daughter's house at Christmas time. Not my house. I took her to my daughter's house. So anyway, but
safe house. Yeah.
It was our safe house. But Shannon's home, we wanted to. Anyway, Shannon got diagnosed with cancer, and it had just went all over her sweet little body. And I just finally said, Shannon, because we've been talking about somebody needs to do something, and somebody needs to do something. God had told me since I was a little girl reading that Reader's Digest, it was supposed to be me doing something. And I kept waiting on somebody else. And I said, Shannon, let's do this. And I said, can we name it Shannon's Home of Hope? And she said, I would be honored. So she actually donated the first part of getting like the little flyers, because we didn't have any money, and I was making, I don't know, probably $12 an hour there, you know, so I didn't have any money. And anyway, we didn't have any sponsors or anything like that. And so she said, I got this. And anyway, so we ordered little flyers, I think some little cards to hand out, but I had to do the nonprofit work. And this is where I just know that God has always provided for me. It doesn't matter what. Keith was running in the Blues Marathon. I sat in the car with a computer and filled out all the paperwork to do a 501(c). And I am not the smartest chick in the world, okay? But just when God tells you to do something, the best thing to do is not run, because you just have to say yes. And he'll equip the rest. You know, he'll equip you with the rest. Like if somebody asked me to do a 501(c) right now, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But at that time, I said yes, and I wanted to see it come to fruition before Shannon passed, because they knew that it was not going to be long. And we did. And she was so excited. And I still look back at her text messages that she was doing, because at that time it had spread to her brain. And so she wasn't thinking real well. And she would say funny things, you know. But anyway, we did it, and just God has blessed that. And then we've had to change a little bit, because I wanted a safe home for kids who are teenagers that don't have anywhere to go. So many times in drug court, we saw moms say, I can't go get help because I'm going to lose my apartment. I'm going to lose my job, you know. And that's a legit complaint. You know, there's a lot of people that still function that can make do with, no matter how they're getting the money, you know, they can make do and get those bills paid. So our hope was those kids, instead of going to juvenile detention, instead of getting back to the same place, that we could work on the family, keep the kids in the same school district, because a lot of changes is really hard on kids. Yeah, you know, they need that stability, and a lot of these kids don't have much stability. So to do that, they could still be, you know, seeing the judge at the court. But it's a lot of state guidelines when it comes to dealing with kids, a lot of, you know, staffing. So it's literally going to cost $1 million a year to just have staff and to keep up the house.
It's funny, and Oliver, we see this in the recovery community, where a lot of times, and I'm trying to think the right way to say this where it doesn't come across negative, but they'll see, well, here's a recovery meeting, and it's all, well, we're going to start our own. Mm-hmm. So they come over here, and instead of having like 50 halfway decent ones, if everybody worked together, have one great one.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know, I can't tell you how many people I know that I feel like God calling me to start a home for sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. But I remember you and I because I went to some of those trainings with you, and just the medical staffing and the education,
That's a
you're
lot.
looking at $1 million a year before you even get somebody in the home.
Yeah.
I get frustrated because anybody's ever contacted me, I'm like, you need to go talk to Michelle Rhodes, because
Yeah.
she's boots on the ground trying to do this, and there's 5 other people trying to start something. It just seems like it would be better if everybody would work together.
Yeah, and they do have a place for girls now. And the sex trade is a hard population to work with. Like even the little girl we work with, it's fun until it's not fun. And they don't realize what's happening to them until they say, I don't want to do this anymore, and then they can't leave.
Right.
Because there's the party involved. It's that teenage, oh yeah, we're partying, I'm whining and dining, I'm getting my nails done, until it's like, this isn't fun. I'm not doing this anymore. And they try to leave, and then they can't.
Okay.
So it just brings a whole different level of trauma. But so Mike Love was on the board, and we were just raising money, just basketball tournament here.
We got to do that again. I had a request for that.
Listen, for years we've been asking for it, but I mean, we're busy too, trying to do ministry in between.
Trying to raise money.
Yeah, trying to.
It's terrible.
So Mike Love was on the board after Shannon passed, and sweet thing, and she said, I believe in my passing, you'll be able to get some money. Of course, people donated, the family asked to donate to Shannon's Hope. So that's kind of, we had got a little bit of initial funds because people wanted to honor Shannon. And so Mike said, well, what can we do while we're waiting? Let's do something. Let's just don't just wait. So we just started, doing what we can to help. We'd reach out to the courts. We'd reach out to the schools, and word of mouth. Y'all let us know when we can help somebody. And I'm just going to tell you something. Everybody that we have helped, minus the one that was in the hotel room that you called me about, minus that, are working families, y'all.
Damien, we're going to talk about her fundraiser, man, but it's a fundraiser and got all these people, and she's telling her speech, and she's like bragging on me and all things, and she says, but the one time we failed, Scott's fault. He sent me there.
No, but look, but we want to help everybody, but it just so happens that literally everybody that we help are most single. I think maybe one family was a mom and dad, and they just needed help with some groceries and like one utility bill. So that's what's really cool about what we're doing here is, okay, if you come on, don't let your electricity cut off, because that is stress.
Yeah.
Look, there were times Keith and I eat deer meat because we had to eat meat. I mean, we had to eat deer meat.
Yeah.
So we get that stress, So if we can prevent a crisis in the home by making sure you have groceries, I mean, it's nothing for me to go to Kroger. I'll do a click list, or if we can pay a utility bill. Now, goes back to I'm not going to work hard on what you work.
That's right.
If you need to get another job, or if you need to, we'll try to get you to some other resources. But if we can prevent that crisis in the home to de-escalate a situation, we'll gladly do that. Now, do we still want a home? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Damien, is this by camera? Which
Yes,
camera?
that's
I don't know where I'm looking
Yeah.
at. I'm looking at you.
I want to look at the camera because I know a couple of things that Michelle said, and Damien, and you and Aubrey feel free to jump in, but like biblically speaking, you didn't, like when people talk about faith, they make it like it's this pie in the sky thing. But when you read Hebrews 11, by faith Enoch walked with God. By faith, it was all action. By faith Noah built the ark. But instead of just waiting for God to drop a home out of the sky, you started doing what you could with what you had. And I think God really honored that. And I want to appeal to anybody that's listening, because we've called Michelle multiple times, including the one she criticizes me about. But what I really appreciate about what you do is that you help people, but you also hold them accountable.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I don't want to be like, I know sometimes we get like, they say you're a Jesus freak or whatever, but
Heck yeah.
yeah,
Sure am, buddy.
Heck yeah.
we get criticized
Sure
for
am.
that.
Damn
Like,
forward.
and it frustrates me because I feel like we're super compassionate, but I've had these people that say, well, people listen to gospel better when they have a full stomach. And I agree with that, but I also have seen where you can give them a house, you can give them food, you can give them a college scholarship, and it doesn't work.
Throwing
gotta have
money at a
heart
problem does
change.
not fix the problem, man.
That's right, and I've seen it where where people get money for anything. But what I appreciate about you is it is Jesus based, but you do hold them accountable and make them do their part. And you're very multifaceted, because I know you were helping a man. When you think about single parents, you don't think about men, but this guy had what, like six kids that you were helping. So anyway, I just want to appeal. I can tell you, that, you know, this is good ground to sow into. What they do. And I'm praying, like you said, you haven't given up on having a home one day in our area where you can take. Do you use the word sex trafficking or human
No, I mean, honestly,
kids in crisis?
Yeah, you kind of
kids in crisis, because really, you know, we have a home for victims of girls, sex trafficking girls now, that is not, you know, that's somewhere else. So because that really is a whole different services than what it wouldn't be. Mine wouldn't be for, or Shannon's hope wouldn't be for sex trafficking, because we have one, and it's a lot of needs that have to be taken up. Mine would be mostly just for those kids that has the, like, just needs help. So like if mom needs to go to rehab, or mom's mentally ill, y'all, mental health is a real deal. That's a real problem. Like, and so mine would be for help people get on their feet. If it's not safe, let's get the home safe, because there's a lot of people are living in homes that are not safe. I would dare say your home wasn't safe when you were living back in the day. But I have a great board of directors that keeps me grounded, because if it were me, I would just say do. But I also have to hold people. I do turn people away. Like, okay, so what's the plan that we're going to do? Hey, I walk alongside you 6 months. Okay, I can commit to 6 months. This is what we'll do. What are we going to do with 6 months where you'll be self-sufficient? Because that's the ultimate. So many people have depended on other people. It's that, you said it before, poverty mindset. We got to get out of that poverty mindset.
Right. Yeah.
Like, literally, it's okay if you if you keep working instead of quitting your job and so you can stay on Medicaid.
That's
It's
right.
okay, because you can get, it's
More
okay to
money.
work.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do that. So I can't really help people like that. If you're not willing to work hard, I've worked 2 jobs almost my whole life. So you got to be able to work and get out, because this is the American dream, man. We have all these people coming over wanting to be here to work and make it, but somehow we've gotten out of that.
Yeah.
Like, out of that. But what we walk alongside of families now, and you know, I can commit to 6 months if needed, but we do turn people away, because if you don't have a plan, you know, if you're not planning on working hard, I'm not just a write a check kind of person.
There's a book that's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but he talks about his rich dad and his poor dad. The guy, Robert Kiyosaki, he was raised by a very poor home. Now he's a 1%er. He's one of the richest people in the entire world. And one of his friends, his dad father was very wealthy. And he said the difference between rich dad and poor dad was oftentimes the language that they would use. So once you've admitted defeat and you say things like, I can't afford it. Well, when you say I can't, you've already accepted within yourself that you cannot. Therefore, your brain goes into lazy mode at that point. You've already accepted it. This is just how it is. But Rich Dad would say, how can you afford it? Right? That, on the opposite side of that coin, that puts your brain, when you say, how can I afford it? Okay, I really need this. How can I afford it? That puts your brain in overdrive to try to figure out what to do next and start to put a plan into place so that you can obtain what it is that you're reaching for. Yeah. And there's a major difference in those two mindsets, man. I know I grew up in that we can't, you know, just complain about what the government gave us. You know, the government don't give us enough, you know, and when you raise children with that mindset, they grow up not to ever become anything, because they've already accepted that they will never be anything. Therefore, they just remain on what someone can give them.
Damon,
Right.
how did you, because you're a worker, and if y'all don't know Damon, he's got a company that does all this, and we want you to support his company, but what you may not realize is Damon at night is laying down flooring to afford
Yeah.
to chase your dream. But how did you break out of that poverty mindset and become the worker you are?
Well, honestly, man, I really don't know. I just realized that it was all a lie. I realized that I had been lied to, right? I realized that
Yeah.
the only thing that was stopping me was me. There wasn't some shadow figure over there who said, you know what, you can't be anything, right? There was that person doesn't exist. That becomes like a crutch that we use in society to say, oh, well, I can't because the system, these people over here, or those people over there, they're keeping me down. No, the only thing that's keeping you down is you. You're what's keeping you down. That mindset is what's keeping you down, right? So whenever you come to realize that and you begin to walk forward, you understand that there's nothing that you can't do if you actually try to do it.
Right.
You know, that's I asked the guy the other day. He said, "Oh man, you know, I can't for whatever reason." I'm not going to go into the reasons that he said, but they were an absolute cop out. Okay, and I said, okay, so let me get this straight. Instead of selling drugs, you went to school, right? You studied while you were at school, and you did everything you could to try to get into college. Is that right? Oh, well, no. Well, there it is. Then you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything to produce that, and you're going to only receive what you produce. You can't get something you didn't produce. And here's the problem. Our society today has grown way too comfortable eating peanut butter and jelly because they don't understand that they have within them what it takes to eat steak.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting going back to the Bible. I grew up, I can remember when I was a kid, I went fishing on Sunday and got a hook stuck in my head. And the whole reason that happens because I was fishing on Sunday. And that was the whole thing. Do you cut grass on Sunday? Do you fish on Sunday? And, that was a big thing. But a lot of people focus on that commandment, but it says 6 days you shall labor.
Right.
And somehow we've missed, I mean, that's a commandment of God to work. And I know, and the people we work with, it's really frustrating because used to people wouldn't give felons a job or wouldn't, and now we have people call us every day and they're paying
And still can't
more
get
money than I've ever made, and our people won't work. They're like, oh,
I've got 17 felonies, I think it is. 17 altogether. And man, I work
you
so
were an
much.
overachiever, weren't you?
Listen, I just want listen to me, everybody. I want a day when I don't work. Amen. Can I please have one of those? You know, because if you want to and your actions back that up, man, it's there for you, man. If you live in the United States of America, man, it's there for you. You can be much greater than anything you could ever possibly imagine. If you hone your skills and bring those skills to bear on the market, you can and will make it.
Yes.
You can and will.
Yes, I was in Madison County this morning. I told those guys, I said, get out here and work. You can make some money. Convicted felon, no college education. I made a great living. But I work, baby. You know,
Yeah.
get
I
out
know.
there, you know. We worked hard.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if y'all believe this or not, but the private school, they didn't pay a lot of money. So I've had people like that contact us to hire people. And I said, well, what can you start them out with? And they tell me, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's more money than I've ever made. But we have this whole mindset that, in fact, I want a job and I want to do as little as I can, and
Yeah.
I want
Right.
to be the supervisor.
Right.
And it's really
Where would the Sistine Chapel be, man, if that's what Michelangelo was thinking when he went in there to paint it? You know what I mean? Well, got to get this done, I guess. Hurry up, throw some paint over there, and let's get out of
yeah,
here.
we're chasing all kinds of
I
rabbits.
know. That's okay. That's my kind of conversation.
Yeah,
Tell us about the fundraiser you get ready to do.
So we started doing, I guess this is our this is our fourth year to do a live auction, silent auction, and a dinner. And so this year we're having it at the Magnolia Lake venue. The Grant and Suzanne Thompson let us use it at no charge. They did last year as well. And we're going to have Judge McCrory's going to be there this year to tell us the state of the children, because he's new coming into office. And so just tell him, what are you seeing coming through the courts in Rankin County? And so he'll just give a brief snippet on that. And we're thinking about asking Ashley to come tell her story, because we were kind of with her from the beginning before she got out of the Peace House, and then kind of followed her on the way while she got her baby back. Ashley, if you're listening, will you do it? So I just haven't reached out just to give her a spit so people can really see tangible help that we're doing. I mean, y'all get to see it every week because y'all do the Celebrate Recovery, and but we don't really have that platform, I guess. So it's our once a year. But so we just raise money. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of chill. We have some great sponsors. I have a great board of directors, that helps get the items. And
I know Grant, Suzanne, they're not social media people, but if anybody sees them, we appreciate them. They've been a blessing
Yeah.
to me.
We're going to send you some Buck Pigeon wildlife art.
Yeah, we made a lot of money off of
Man,
that.
that was great, wasn't it? Yeah, a couple of ducks.
But people
man.
are so good. Here's what I have found through the years, even
Nice
when I was at the juvenile detention center. If people don't know, they can't help. But
That's
once
right.
you are able to get that word out and say, hey, this is a need, people are very generous. It's just that we're busy. And just because it's my ministry doesn't mean it's your ministry. So we can't judge people for not wanting to be part of it, because there's plenty of wonderful ministries around our area that, we're not part of. But that's not because I don't believe in what they're doing. It's just that we're busy doing what God put us to do.
Yeah.
So, but when people know that there's a need, I mean, they usually respond very quickly.
So what can people do to help you with this fundraiser?
Donate silent auction items or live auction items, buy raffle tickets, buy a table sponsorship, pray. If you do want to mentor a mom, we've got plenty of people that probably would love that. I can't tell you how many women I've prayed with out in the grocery store parking lot, and they cry like babies because nobody's really done anything. Like sometimes we miss the mom part.
That's
Or
right.
the dad part. They're so busy trying to just survive. And, when you get used to living in that crisis situation, it's just like you're just all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need to, and I always try to tell them, get in a local church, come to our church because we're in Pelahatchie. So if they don't want to drive that far, or they don't have a vehicle. Transportation is a real issue for us. Affordable housing, transportation. You can say what you should do or what you would do, but if you don't have a car to get to
You got that right.
Kroger, to get to the Kroger to work or fill out an application, you can't work.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, so many people don't have friends or family to call on. And really, my friend group's pretty small. I have a lot of great friends, but my people that I call on to pray for, or if I'm going through crisis, it's pretty small. But a lot of people don't even have that one,
Michelle, I just want to say that earlier you said something that I really felt so strongly, was when you said, I was always saying somebody should do something, and it reminded me of this story with a guy who said, God, you just gotta, why don't you do something, God? Why don't you do something? He said, I did. I sent you.
Nah.
I sent you, and we are those hands and we are those feet. And I just want to take a second just to say, if you guys out there who are listening and watching, man, I mean, if you care about children, if you care about, this lady has given her life to trying to help these children, right? And you have the money or the resources or the time to even go and just volunteer to help. If you've got the time to stop what you're doing every once in a while and just say a prayer for organizations like these, please, by all means, do whatever you can, because there is so many children out there who feel lost, they feel broken, they feel alone, and they feel absolutely destroyed in life. And there's not enough people out there who are there helping them. And I just want to say, please, if you can, in any way that you can, lend a help.
Damon, I know a lot of times people will think, well, I don't have if I had $1 million, I'd give it to Michelle. But if you have $10, and I think about that, that's a Starbucks cup of coffee. But if 1,000 people gave Michelle $10 a month,
That's a lot of
and
money.
she could have a budget, this is what I could pay to have a mentor, and this is what I could pay to have a program. I know, and we'll have to get Willie McLean on here, but it's a friend of ours that does ministry where he mentors inner city kids. But his, people will give money if you say, we reached 1,000 people. Well, his goal is to reach 4.
Yeah.
And he digs deep, but one of the things he wanted to do was when those kids finish his ministry, to be able to give them a car. I'm not talking about a brand new car, but how cool would it be if you had enough money in your budget, you could say, I can give us one single mom a year a used Toyota Camry or whatever. So anyway, that if everybody, I think because we don't have a lot, we don't think we can give, but God just wants you to give what you can. And if everybody did that, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
And people have been very generous. We've had some, kind of like y'all, people are generous to y'all. And y'all are more feet on the ground than I am. Mine's mostly just fixing an immediate problem. That's just kind of where our ministry is right now, where we wait and see where God leads us to. Like, okay, you don't have to fill out an application with me. I fill it out as we're talking on the phone, and then just give me what you need. Now, so that's what I hope to be more feet on the ground. But with me being in Raymond, like I'm kind of sold out
Like
to
you said, that's your
them right
ministry.
now. That's
Yeah,
my ministry
the
right now. That's
children.
where God has me. It's kids that, that need me there.
Yeah.
So
Showing that
that's where
love
I'm
to those
at.
kids. I remember we used to go to the juvenile detention center, and our day Sunday fell on a Christmas. Is it the Christmas? Yeah, I think it was Christmas. And man, we went in there, and I thought, well, there won't be any kids here because the holiday they're gonna be gone. But there was a handful of kids there. Their parents wouldn't even come get them on Christmas. Made them stay there for Christmas. I mean, it's heartbreaking, man. I mean, that's
Look, I had to take a kid home one
tough.
time in the sheriff's van, and it was not in a very safe place for a police car to be down there. They wouldn't come get him, and it was a judge's order, and I just took him home.
yeah.
I remember Judge Brown passed away. All things new every year at Christmas, we get to feed the juvenile detention center in Pelahatchie. But I remember me and Chastity being there and getting everything ready on Christmas Day, and Judge Brown was in there trying to get a kid released to go home with Chris. He was such a good guy.
He was such a good guy. Another thing I was going to say is, if you didn't want to give to us, I do, and because my two of my daughters are teachers, but if you can support a teacher in a classroom, I cannot tell you how much teachers spend out of their own pocket.
That's
Like
right.
in the high school area, they're
That's
like,
absolutely true.
Miss Rhodes, you got cash out? I'm like, can you or they come into the classroom and say, I'm starving, and like, okay, just go. I would always
what
have
do
stuff.
you
So teachers, if you can adopt a teacher in your area, elementary, because you think about, you have all these kids that are having snack that their mom packed them, and then you
That's
have a kid that doesn't have a snack.
Right.
Do you think any teacher's going to sit there and not let that kid eat a Little Debbie's cake or buy a pack of something for them? So that's one thing that I kind of want to do too is,
Right,
support your teachers,
Yeah,
because
schools
your
fix the
teachers
stocks,
are
too.
loving on those kids and dealing with those behaviors because of things that happen in the home. So that's a good way to support somebody local in your community too. Call the principal and say, what can we do to help? Or here's $50 when they need a field trip.
Absolutely.
Are there any practical needs that people can do to help Oakley?
Oakley's run by the state, so they just about have everything that they need. If you have some life skills that you'd want to maybe come teach, but we're on our schedule is, they get up at 6 and lights out at 9, and it's like boom, 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 boom. So we do have Inspiring Wednesday, so we have special speakers or special events for that day. We're having May Day Thursday. The kids are going to do relay races, have watermelon and snacks and popcorn. And so we try to let those kids to enjoy the teenage years that they haven't been able to do too. It's Dr. Daniels is an amazing director there. The state office, Mr. Anderson, Miss Kurtz on down, they like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? What do they need? What do they need? What do they need? So probably not, they're kind of ticky of who gets to bring stuff in and who sees the kids, because they're protected under the court, that everybody's not supposed to know who's there.
And if you could snap your fingers and just guide through this great work to be able to have a home, what would that look like? Property in the country.
Rural,
Rural.
not in the city. Rural, farm life, quiet life, walls where if they punched a hole through them, it really didn't matter. Just fix it. Maybe have wooden walls. So kids are angry, y'all. Kids are angry. And they have reasons to be angry a lot of times, and they don't know how to channel that anger. And that's why I love the mental health aspect of what Oakley does. Like, we set goals,
Damon, I remember I went with Michelle to one of those sex trafficking things, and it always got to my heart a little bit, because we're obviously all Christians and Bible believers and all that, but I remember the guy that was kind of teaching the class, he said, you got to be careful with your theology. And it was like, well, what do you mean? But he said people would just come in with his kids in trauma. They said, well, I just want you to know, sweetie, God was always there watching over you.
Yeah.
And then when the girl says, so God was watching when my daddy raped me when I was 3.
Man.
So it's like, there's a little pat Bible answers sometimes don't work
Yeah.
in situations like that. And I remember them saying that if you're offended by profanity,
Oh,
don't come here because
yeah.
these
No.
are people that grew up in the streets and they've been abused and all that.
They've been cussing since they were 2. And so you just have to always tell the staff, just listen to what they're saying, not how they're saying it. Try to figure out, okay, I get it. You're mad. You don't trust anybody, and then go from there. You can't you can't get caught up in that. That's a goal to work on because, I try to tell the kids, like, look, if you go out of here and you're in a totem store and you start acting like that, first thing they're going to do is call 911 and guess where you gone? You gone. You got to be able to handle conflict.
You had to explain to all the country listeners what a totem story is.
Yeah. Told her
The
age.
marathon.
You told her age. Yeah, the sea story, yeah.
Damien, you got anything you want to add to this before we wind it up?
I would just say that, Michelle, it warms my heart to see what you're doing. That's an amazing story that you have, and I can appreciate it probably more than a lot of people can. With my circumstances, the way that I grew up, and the things that I had to go through myself. So, for me, it's very, very heartwarming to see that, and I appreciate you being here today and just coming and talking with us, and we'll be praying for you and just keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for what y'all do. Look, it's not me. It's the support. It's the people who give. I'm just the lucky one that gets to go see the families, or do like the other day I bought groceries and the dad went home and the little girl said, "Oh, you saw Miss Michelle again?" Because he said he had nothing.
Yeah.
So I was going like, "Oh no, you're gonna have something."
And again, these are all people that are working. I think.
Yeah, they're
I think
working
people
families.
that-
It's not people that aren't working. It's not people in the system. It is people who are working. But it costs a lot to live.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you've got one income in, it's 2 incomes in my family.
Yeah. I know a lot of, and I hate to say the church crowd, but a lot of them don't realize that they got this mentality, well, they ought to go get a job, or they ought to, but they
They're
don't.
working. I mean, honestly, it's going to be really hard for me I've had people call and say, "Hey, I need help with my house payment and I'm 3 months behind." Well, we don't pay late bills either. I'm sorry you didn't know about us, because you can't catch up, because if you're 3 months behind, what are you
Put a
going to do
Band-Aid
to,
Yeah.
and I want to be a good steward with our supporters' money. And, I just wish they would have told me earlier, and we're not going to pay the whole house note, because if I have to pay your whole note, what are we going to do? Like, I'm going to walk alongside of you and help you, but I'm just not going to write checks.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we want to see these people
If I have to do that, I
improve.
do a CPS report.
Improve, like,
Yeah.
when we help people, we want to see them at church and doing the
Yeah.
right things, and
Yeah, do something different. Like, what have you done? Okay, on month 3, what have you done different? Have you gone to church? Have you, if we give them like somebody they can sit down with and do their finances? Because I'm terrible with my finances too. I just go. Keith, lucky I have Keith, but I don't know. Hey, all we can do is what we can do.
Yeah.
And don't wait on somebody else to do it.
That's
I love partnering with All Things New, because man, y'all do so much. I can't even keep up with it, but I love partnership with y'all, and I can't wait till I retire
It's
and
funny,
do more.
Chastity, I think, I can't remember if it was Chastity or Aubrey the other day. She said, all we do is just swap money back and forth.
I know, we
You'll
do it all the
sponsor
time.
us, we'll sponsor you. Like, hey, let's just quit giving and just,
Yeah.
just count it, fist bump.
Yeah.
And Damien, she'll give us money for our 5K, then we'll support a table, whatever. It's like, probably at the end of the year, we
It's even.
zero, and it's like, so,
Yeah.
It's
Aubrey,
okay.
you
It's good
got-
to have partnership.
oh, absolutely.
Everybody working together.
You are one of my favorite people, and I've loved you for a long time, and you're fun to do stuff with. And you may not even remember, but I was going through probably the lowest time in my life. And I was in the parking lot at the school, and I was just broken. And you came up and you said, "Who hurt you? I'll take them out."
I've
And
met
I
those.
know you didn't mean that, but I'll always remember, because just that you were, willing to do whatever to help me. So I've always appreciated that, and it's amazing what you do. Aubrey, you got anything from Michelle? Before
Yeah, I just, man, basically showing people the love of Jesus, man. You can't go wrong.
That's right.
That's worth more than any check, the love of Jesus, man. It works every time. That's what Michelle does, and that she's always done that. And, man, we really appreciate her. And, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I say, y'all, they can have them children, man, them kids, because we got the big kids, but But heck, if the little kids would get it, we wouldn't have so many big kids.
That's
would we?
right.
So it's
That's right.
really so important. And just, hey, I was thinking about Debbie. Tell us a good Debbie story, can you
Well,
think
the
of?
funny thing about Debbie for me, for a long time, I didn't know her name because, she had that husky voice.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand when she called me. I couldn't understand what she said. Like, that's before I really met her. So I had her name in a wholly different name than what it was. Like, I didn't even know her name till she started coming out there. But the one thing about Debbie and I, she's kind of like me. We kept our boxing gloves on at the same time. Like, she's ready to go too. But the best story, this isn't a funny story, but the best story that I can remember about Debbie, I have a lot of them, but they came in that youth court one time to support somebody that was in y'all's ministry. And it was her, Kim, and I think Ginger. They came in that courtroom, and I always used to go get them. Instead of waiting out in the lobby, I'd go get them, bring them to my office. And we had prayed in my office and stuff for this family and for court and for Judge Bream and everything. And we walked out, and it gives me chill bumps now. I could feel the Holy Spirit all over Debbie Pritchard. I felt like I could have conquered the world with her right by my side. And I know she was anointed. And every time that people couldn't afford, rehab costs a lot of times. And it's a lot of work to get people in. And there's a waiting list. I would always tell the young girls in my office going, you've got to get in touch with Debbie Pridgeon. And I'd call Debbie or text her and say, hey, I got somebody coming to you. And more times than not, that they would reach out to Debbie and she would start mentoring and pointing to them, getting them in the program.
Yeah.
So, really the thing about Debbie is she was so real and so godly. And I remember when y'all was starting the ministry, she said, I think we're just going to go ahead and do it. I think we're just going to do it. And I was going, do it, and at that time I was like going, I wish I could do it. But I think because of y'all's step of faith, you walked away from your job.
Yeah.
She was retired. Y'all did it. And I think that encourages people like me that had been fighting against it for years and years and years to like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have faith. And man, it's, hey, I tell this story about when we did step out. Anybody, we started in ministry, the enemy tries to stop you from this stuff. So I said, well, I'd retired I quit my job. She had retired from the state. Mm-hmm. And I said, I paid all the bills up, got the house paid off, got everything paid for. The first day that the 4Runner blew a tire, brand new. And I said, golly. then later that week, we had a little lady living with us, and her children living at our house, for a couple of weeks. We were stashing her there for a little while to help her out, and man, I loved it. We had 3 girls. We had a blast, And so all of a sudden my sewer stopped up, and I said, they didn't flush something down the commode, Man, my sewer line broke.
Goodness.
Then we went somewhere and come back home, and the house is wet. The air conditioner had give out. I said, devil, you ain't gonna win.
Get away.
You ain't gonna
Still
win.
doing it.
I said, that $200 tire, $3,000 worth of sewer, $6,000 air conditioning unit. Well, that's old prices. It costs more now.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, you're not gonna win, but we kept, man. You got to keep at it, and the enemy didn't stop us. But yeah, we always. We thank you for everything you do, and man, we went over to the Oakley the other day and had a tour. Michelle carried us through there. Man, it was really nice, and that's a very nice facility, really.
They do a lot to help the kids.
But anyway, man, yeah, we appreciate you, Michelle. Like I say, my saying is, you can't go wrong with the Rhodes. Every time I see them, they laugh. Her husband, her kids, her family, man. You got
look, if you're a leader
family
of a church, it doesn't matter if it's 10 people in your church or 1,000. If you have any kind of influence of putting this ministry in your budget, supporting them,
Yes.
I'm sure you got all kinds of ways you can give, and it's a non-profit, so it's a tax
write-off.
Yeah, tax write-off. So all you millionaires, help a sister out. So, well, Michelle, anything come to your mind while we were talking?
No.
Like, I wish I'd have said that, or I forgot this, or.
No. Thank y'all for doing this.
Hey, I'll
let
tell.
me
Gotta get back to work.
I just want to make sure I've got these right. If you guys would like to reach Shannon, my bad, Michelle, you can contact Shannon's Hope at shannonshomeofhope.org. Is that right, Michelle?
Yeah.
Also, you can email shannonshomeofhope@gmail.com. Is that right? And also, you can call them at 601-201-9276, and you can give them a call over there. By
That's my
all
cell
means, also on Facebook, it'll be facebook.com/Shannon's Home of Hope. So if you guys want to reach out to them, those are multiple ways that you can do that. I would suggest that you do so if the Lord has put that on your heart. And we want to thank everyone for watching with us today, and just hope y'all got something out of this. It's been very inspiring, and we love you guys. Amen.
God bless.
Amen.
Thank you.
Man.
Till we see you guys next week, y'all stay prayed up.
Holy, holy is